Section 3 of Weird Tales, Jules de Grandin, Volume 2, by Seabury Quinn. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The House of Horror, Part 1. Morbleu, friend Trowbridge, have a care, Jules de Grandin warned, as my lurching motor car almost ran into the brimming ditch beside the rain-soaked road. I wrenched the steering wheel viciously and swore softly under my breath as I leaned forward, striving vainly to pierce the curtains of rain which shut us in. "No use, old fellow," I confessed, turning to my companion. "We're lost, that's all there is to it." "Ha!" he laughed shortly. "Do you just begin to discover that fact, my friend?" "Parbleu, I have known it this last half hour." Throttling my engine down, I crept along the concrete roadway, peering through my streaming windshield and storm curtains for some familiar landmark, but nothing but blackness, wet and impenetrable, met my eyes. 2 hours before, answering an insistent phone call, de Grandin and I had left the security of my warm office to administer a dose of toxin antitoxin to an Italian labourer's child who lay choking with diphtheria in a hut at the workmen's settlement where the new branch of the railroad was being put through. The cold driving rain and the Stygian darkness of the night had misled me when I made the detour around the railway cut, and for the past hour and a half I had been feeling my way over unfamiliar roads as futilely as a lost child wandering in the woods. "Gracias Dieu!" de Grandin exclaimed, seizing my arm with both his small strong hands. "A light! See where it shines in the night! Come, let us go to it. Even the meanest hovel is preferable to this so villainous rain." I peeped through a joint in the curtains and saw a faint, intermittent light flickering through the driving rain some 200 yards away. "All right," I acquiesced, climbing from the car. "We've lost so much time already we probably couldn't do anything for the Vivianti child, and maybe these people can put us on the right road anyway." Plunging through the puddles like miniature lakes, soaked by the wind-driven rain, barking our shins again and again on invisible obstacles, we made for the light, finally drawing up to a large square house of red brick fronted by an imposing white-pillared porch. Light streamed out through the fanlight over the white door and from the 2 tall windows flanking the portal. "Parbleu, a house of circumstance this," de Grandin commented, mounting the porch and banging lustily at the polished brass knocker. I wrinkled my forehead in thought while he rattled the knocker a second time. "Strange, I can't remember this place," I muttered. "I thought I knew every building within 30 miles, but this is a new one." "Ah, bah!" de Grandin interrupted. "Always you must be casting a wet blanket on the parade, friend Trowbridge. First you insist on losing us in the midst of a sacré rainstorm. Then when I, Jules de Grandin, find us a shelter from the weather, you must needs waste time in wondering why it is you know not the place. Morbleu, you will refuse shelter because you have never been presented to the master of the house, if I do not watch you, I fear." "But I ought to know the place, de Grandin," I protested. "It's certainly imposing enough to—" My defence was cut short by the sharp click of a lock and the wide white door swung inward before us. We strode over the threshold, removing our dripping hats as we did so, and turned to address the person who had opened the door. "Why," I began, and stared about me in open-mouthed surprise. "Name of a little blue man," said Jules de Grandin, and added his incredulous stare to mine. As far as we could see, we were alone in the mansion's imposing hall. Straight before us, perhaps for 40 feet, ran a corridor of parquetry flooring, covered here and there by rich-hued oriental rugs. White panelled walls adorned with oil paintings of imposing-looking individuals rose for 18 feet or so to a beautifully frescoed ceiling, and a graceful, curving staircase swept upward from the farther end of the room. Candles in cut glass sconces lighted the high-ceilinged apartment. The hospitable glow from a log fire burning under the high white marble mantel lent an air of homely coziness to the place, but of anything living, human or animal, there was no faintest trace or sign. Click! Behind us the heavy outer door swung to silently on well-oiled hinges, and the automatic lock latched firmly. "Death of my life!" de Grandin murmured, reaching for the door's silver-plated knob and giving it a vigorous twist. "Par la moustache du diable, friend Trowbridge, it is locked!" Truly, perhaps it had been better if we had remained outside in the rain. "Not at all, I assure you, my dear sir," a rich, mellow voice answered him from the curve of the stairs. "Your arrival was nothing less than providential, gentlemen." Coming toward us, walking heavily with the aid of a stout cane, was an unusually handsome man attired in pyjamas and dressing-gown, a sort of nightcap of flowered silk on his white head, slippers of softest morocco on his feet. "You are a physician, sir?" he asked, glancing inquiringly at the medicine case in my hand. "Yes," I answered, "I am Dr. Samuel Trowbridge, from Harrisonville, and this is Dr. Jules de Grandin of Paris, who is my guest." "Ah," replied our host, "I am very, very glad to welcome you to Marston Hall, gentlemen. It so happens that my daughter is quite ill, and I have been unable to obtain medical aid for her on account of my infirmities and the lack of a telephone. If I may trespass on your charity to attend my poor child, I shall be delighted to have you as my guests for the night. If you will lay aside your coats—" He paused expectantly. "Ah, thank you," as we hung our dripping garments over a chair. "You will come this way, please." We followed him up the broad stairs and down an upper corridor to a tastefully furnished chamber, where a young girl, 15 years of age perhaps, lay propped up with a pile of diminutive pillows. "Annabel, Annabel, my love, here are 2 doctors to see you," the old gentleman called softly. The girl moved her fair head with a weary, peevish motion and whimpered softly in her sleep, but gave no further recognition of our presence. "And what have been her symptoms, if you please, monsieur?" de Grandin asked as he rolled back the cuffs of his jacket and prepared to make an examination. "Sleep," replied our host, "just sleep. Some time ago she suffered from influenza. Lately she has been given to fits of protracted slumber, from which I cannot waken her. I fear she may have contracted sleeping sickness, sir. I am told it sometimes follows influenza." De Grandin passed his small, pliable hands rapidly over the girl's cheeks in the region of her ears, felt rapidly along her neck over the jugular vein, then raised a puzzled glance to me. "Have you some laudanum and aconite in your bag, friend Trowbridge?" he asked. "There's some morphine," I answered, "and aconite, but no laudanum." "No matter." He waved his hand impatiently, bustling over to the medicine case and extracting 2 small vials from it. "No matter, this will do as well. Some water, if you please, monsieur." He turned to the father, a medicine bottle in each hand. "But, de Grandin," I began, when a sudden kick from one of his slender, heavily shod feet nearly broke my shin. "De Grandin, do you think that's the proper medication?" I finished lamely. "Oh, mais oui, undoubtedly," he replied. "Nothing else would do in this case." "Water, if you please, monsieur," he repeated again, addressing the father. I stared at him in ill-disguised amazement as he extracted a pellet from each of the bottles, and quickly ground them to powder while the old gentleman filled a tumbler with water from the porcelain pitcher which stood on the chintz-draped washstand in the corner of the chamber. He was as familiar with the arrangement of my medicine case as I was, I knew, and knew that my phials were arranged by numbers instead of being labelled. Deliberately I saw he had passed over the morphine and aconite, and had chosen 2 bottles of plain, unmedicated sugar-of-milk pills. What his object was I had no idea, but I watched him measure out 4 teaspoonfuls of water, dissolve the powder in it, and pour the sham medication down the unconscious girl's throat. "Good," he proclaimed, as he washed the glass with meticulous care. "She will rest easily until the morning, monsieur. When daylight comes, we shall decide on further treatment. Will you now permit that we retire?" He bowed politely to the master of the house, who returned his courtesy and led us to a comfortably furnished room farther down the corridor. "See here, de Grandin," I demanded when our host had wished us a pleasant good night, and closed the door upon us, "what was your idea in giving the child an impotent dose like that?" "Sh!" he cut me short with a fierce whisper. "That young girl's mon ami is no more suffering from encephalitis than you or I. There is no characteristic swelling of the face or neck, no diagnostic hardening of the jugular vein. Her temperature was a bit subnormal, it is true, but upon her breath I detected the odour of chloral hydrate. For some reason, good I hope, but bad I fear, she is drugged, and I thought it best to play the fool and pretend I believed the man's statements. Pardieu, the fool who knows himself no fool has an immense advantage over the fool who believes him one, my friend. But me no buts, friend Trowbridge. Remember how the door of this house opened with none to touch it. Recall how it closed behind us in the same way, and observe this if you will." Stepping softly, he crossed the room, pulled aside the chintz curtains at the window, and tapped lightly on the frame which held the thick plate-glass panes. "Regardez-vous," he ordered, tapping the frame a second time. Like every other window I had seen in the house, this one was of the casement type, small panes of heavy glass being sunk into lattice-like frames. Under de Grandin's direction I tapped the latter, and found them not painted wood as I had supposed, but stoutly welded and bolted metal. Also, to my surprise, I found the turnbuckles for opening the casement were only dummies, the metal frames being actually securely bolted to the stone sills. To all intents, we were as firmly incarcerated as though serving a sentence in the state penitentiary. "The door," I began, but he shook his head. Obeying his gesture, I crossed the room and turned the handle lightly. It twisted under the pressure of my fingers, but though we had heard no warning click of lock or bolt, the door itself was as firmly fastened as though nailed shut. "Why," I asked stupidly, "what's it all mean, de Grandin?" "Je ne sais quoi," he answered with a shrug. "But one thing I know, I like not this house, friend Trowbridge. Above the hissing of the rain against the windows and the howl of the sea wind about the gables, there suddenly rose a scream, wire-edged with inarticulate terror, freighted with utter transcendental anguish of body and soul. Cordieu! He threw up his head like a hound hearing the call of the pack from far away. Did you hear that too, friend Trowbridge?" "Of course," I answered, every nerve in my body trembling in horripilation with the echo of the hopeless wail. "Pardieu," he repeated, "I like this house less than ever now. Come, let us move this dresser before our door. It is safer that we sleep behind barricades this night, I think." We blocked the door, and I was soon sound asleep. "Trowbridge, Trowbridge, my friend!" de Grandin drove a sharp elbow into my ribs. "Wake up, I beseech you. Name of a green goat, you lie like one dead, save for your abominable snoring." "Eh?" I answered sleepily, thrusting myself deeper beneath the voluminous bedclothes. Despite the unusual occurrences of the night, I was tired to the point of exhaustion, and fairly drunk with sleep. "Up, rise up, my friend," he ordered, shaking me excitedly. "The coast is clear, I think, and it is high time we did some exploring." "Rats!" I scoffed, disinclined to leave my comfortable couch. "What's the use of wandering about a strange house to gratify a few unfounded suspicions? The girl might have been given a dose of chloral hydrate, but the chances are her father thought he was helping her when he gave it. As for these trick devices for opening and locking doors, The old man apparently lives here alone and has installed these mechanical aids to lessen his work. He has to hobble around with a cane, you know." "Ah," my companion assented sarcastically, "and that scream we heard, did he install that as an aid to his infirmities also?" "Perhaps the girl woke up with a nightmare," I hazarded, but he made an impatient gesture. "Perhaps the moon is composed of green cheese also," he replied. Up and dress, my friend. This house should be investigated while yet there is time. Attend me. But 5 minutes ago, through this very window, I did observe Monsieur our host, attired in a raincoat, depart from his own front door, and without his cane. Parbleu, he did skip as agilely as any boy, I assure you. Even now he is almost at the spot where we abandoned your automobile. What he intends doing there I know not. What I intend doing I know full well. Do you accompany me or not?" "Oh, I suppose so," I agreed, crawling from the bed and slipping into my clothes. "How are you going to get past that locked door?" He flashed me one of his sudden smiles, shooting the points of his little blond moustache upward like the horns of an inverted crescent. "Observe," he ordered, displaying a short length of thin wire. In the days when women's hair was still her crowning glory, what mighty deeds a lady could encompass with a hairpin! Pardieu, there was one little grisette in Paris who showed me some tricks in the days before the war. Regard me, if you please." He deftly thrust the pliable loop of wire into the keyhole, twisting it tentatively back and forth, at length pulling it out, and regarding it carefully. "Très bien," he muttered as he reached into an inside pocket, bringing out a heavier bit of wire. "See," he displayed the finer wire. "With this I take an impression of that lock's tumblers now." Quickly he bent the heavier wire to conform to the waved outline of the lighter loop. "Voila! I have a key." And he had. The lock gave readily to the pressure of his improvised key, and we stood in the long, dark hall, staring about us half curiously, half fearfully. "This way, if you please," de Grandin ordered. "First we will look in upon La Genée to see how it goes with her." We walked tiptoe down the corridor, entered the chamber where the girl lay, and approached the bed. She was lying with her hands folded upon her breast in the manner of those composed for their final rest, her wide, periwinkle blue eyes staring sightlessly before her, the short, tightly curled ringlets of her blonde bobbed hair surrounding her drawn, pallid face like a golden nimbus encircling the ivory features of a saint in some carved icon. My companion approached the bed softly, placing one hand on the girl's wrist, with professional precision. "Temperature low, pulse weak," he murmured, checking off her symptoms. "Complexion pale to the point of lividity. Ha! Now for the eyes. Sleeping, her pupils should have been contracted, while they should now be dilate. Dieu de Dieu, Trowbridge, my friend, come here. Look," he commanded, pointing to the apathetic girl's face. "Those eyes, grand Dieu, those eyes! It is sacrilege, nothing less." I looked into the girl's face, then started back with a half-suppressed cry of horror. Asleep, as she had been when we first saw her, the child had been pretty to the point of loveliness. Her features were small and regular, clean-cut as those of a face in a cameo. The tendrils of her light yellow hair had lent her a dainty, ethereal charm comparable to that of a Dresden china shepherdess. It had needed but the raising of her delicate, long-lashed eyelids to give her face the animation of some laughing sprite playing truant from fairyland. Her lids were raised now, but the eyes they unveiled were no clear, joyous windows of a tranquil soul. Rather, they were peepholes of a spirit in torment. The irides were a lovely shade of blue, it is true, but the optics themselves were things of horror. Rolling grotesquely to right and left, they peered futilely in opposite directions, lending to her sweet, pale face the half ludicrous, wholly hideous expression of a bloating frog. "Good heavens!" I exclaimed, turning from the deformed girl with a feeling of disgust akin to nausea. "What a terrible affliction!" De Grandin made no reply, but bent over the girl's still form, gazing intently at her malformed eyes. "It is not natural," he announced. "The muscles have been tampered with, and tampered with by someone who is a master hand at surgery. Will you get me your syringe and some strychnine, friend Trowbridge? This poor one is still unconscious." I hastened to our bedroom and returned with the hypodermic and stimulant, then stood beside him, watching eagerly as he administered a strong injection. The girl's narrow chest fluttered as the powerful drug took effect, and the pale lids dropped for a second over her repulsive eyes. Then, with a sob which was half moan, she attempted to raise herself on her elbow, fell back again, and with apparent effort gasped. "The mirror! Let me have the mirror! Oh, tell me it isn't true! Tell me it was a trick of some sort! Oh, the horrible thing I saw in the glass couldn't have been I! What was it?" "Tiens, ma petite," de Grandin replied, "but you speak in riddles. What is it you would know?" He, the girl faltered weakly, forcing her trembling lips to frame the words. "That horrible old man showed me a mirror a little while ago, and said the face in it was mine. Oh, it was horrible, horrible!" "Eh? What is this?" de Grandin demanded on a rising note. "He? Horrible old man? Are you not his daughter? Is he not your father?" "No," the girl gasped, so low her denial was scarcely audible. "I was driving home from Macclesfield I forget when it was, but it was at night, and my tires punctured. I think there must have been glass on the road, for the shoes were cut to ribbons. I saw the light in this house and came to ask for help. An old man, oh, I thought he was so nice and kind, let me in and said he was all alone here and about to eat dinner, and asked me to join him. I ate I don't remember what it was, and the next thing I knew he was standing by my bed, holding a mirror up to me and telling me it was my face I saw in the glass. Oh, please, please, tell me it was some terrible trick he played on me. I'm not truly hideous, am I?" "Morbleu," de Grandin muttered softly, tugging at the ends of his moustache. "What is all this?" To the girl he said, "But of course not. You are like a flower, mademoiselle, a little flower that dances in the wind. You— And my eyes? They aren't, she interrupted with piteous eagerness. "Please tell me they aren't." "Mais non, ma chère," he assured her. "Your eyes are like the pervenche that mirrors the sky in springtime. They are— Let me see in the mirror, please," she interrupted in anxious whisper. "I'd like to see for myself. If you— Oh, I feel all weak inside." She lapsed back against the pillow, her lids mercifully veiling the hideously distorted eyes and restoring her face to tranquil beauty. "Cordieu," de Grandin breathed. The chloral reasserted itself none too soon for Jules de Grandin's comfort, friend Trowbridge. Sooner would I have gone to the rack than have shown that pitiful child her face in a mirror. "But what's it all mean?" I asked. "She says she came here and the rest remains for us to find out, I think," he replied evenly. "Come, we lose time, and to lose time is to be caught, my friend." Section 3